What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Before I seriously get into testing for every new set, I like to make tier lists with my predictions on what decks and archetypes will be popular and good and successful in the upcoming standard format. So that's what we're going to do today for the Silver Tempest format. Silver Tempest releases today, November 11th, and I have plenty of other videos about this set and the cards in it on this channel. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily Pokemon TCG content, and also check out my lovely sponsors in the description down below, and leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed the video, and let me hear your thoughts, because these are just opinions until they are proven right or wrong. So we're going to start with adding a tier S. I think we should do that. And here's the thing, guys. Lugia is very strong. And that doesn't mean you have to play Lugia or lose, because whenever there's a tier S deck, that means it's time to hard counter it. We've seen this in the past with like Mew VMAX, when Drew Kennett won with Arceus Gengar, and Finn got second at that tournament with Suicune Ludicolo, and then Arceus Toolbox decks got top 4 and top 8, and Mew didn't even do that well because Mew was being hard countered. So if Lugia is good and popular enough for the entire meta to warp around it, then it becomes the center of the meta, but it's also not the best deck to play. So when a deck becomes too good for its own good, it becomes not the deck to play anymore. So will Lugia become that? We'll have to see. As of now, I think Lugia is very strong, and it definitely has the potential to become that dominant tier S deck that just gets countered to the point where it's like performing like a tier 2 deck or a tier 1 deck, you know? So as long as the meta respects decks like this, they're typically not a problem. And if people don't respect it, then the players who played Lugia get rewarded. So I do think Lugia is very, very strong, and I'm going to put it up here. I think the best decks prior to Silver Tempest were Palkia and Teleon and Giratina. I'd probably say that Giratina was the best deck in format, but there were a lot of players that knew Palkia so well that it would still feel like the best deck to them. So these were pretty even for me in the previous format. Regigigas is a deck that's pretty inherently strong, and it's also pretty good against Lugia and Palkia. So Regigigas is going to be a pretty comfortable tier 1.5 for me. I think Mew is very strong, and it also gains Forest Sealstone in the Silver Tempest standard format. So that is good, and I'm going to put Lugia up here with the big boys in tier 1. Vikavolt v Regieleki, I think, is a good deck. It's super solid. So I think tier 2 is like solid decks that can find themselves in good positions. And I think Vikavolt V is here, maybe has room to move up a peg or two, but yeah, I think tier 2 decks are super solid, so I'm not saying Vikavolt Regieleki is bad. It's one of the decks I'm most excited about for this format. But I'm going to put it right here, because remember, guys, tier lists are subjective to the person making them, and I want each tier to separate decks by how good I think they are. I think these 3 decks are roughly in the same tier, but I think they don't have as much power as Lugia, but I think they're better than Regigigas. I think Regigigas is a little bit better than Vikavolt Regieleki VMAX, so that's why there's a tier separating them. I'm going to put Regidrago in tier 3 for now, because I think there's a tier separating that and decks like Vikavolt v Regieleki VMAX. I am not saying this deck is bad, but I will need to see it perform to prove that it's better than this. I'm going to put Arceus Gudra into tier 2. We already know it's a deck that can perform, but one of its best matchups, which are the Lost Box decks, I think are going to be a little less popular than they were for a little bit there in the Lost Origin format. We're going to go ahead and put Lost Box into tier 1.5, but I want to make it clear that this is also representing Comfy Mirage Gate decks outside of Comfy Mirage Gate with Tina. I think Lost Box Mirage Gate should still be explored more than it has been. I'm so surprised that outside of Japan, we haven't really been exploring Mirage Gate Comfy decks, I guess because we've had so few tournaments and people really want to make every tournament count, so they're playing more consistent decks, which that's fair. Kyurem Palkia, I think deserves a spot up here. I think it's still in the top 10-ish decks. And it's a solid deck. It's a very in-between kind of deck. If I wanted a deck where I don't have to know the deck perfectly, but I can still make gameplay decisions based on my fundamental skills and experience, and I don't have any awful matchups against the top decks, I would play Kyurem Palkia. Kyurem Palkia is exactly what I just described. You don't need to, study on the mountains for 4 weeks to master Kyurem Palkia, but you can still use your skill expression to change the outcome of games. And it doesn't have awful matchups, but it also doesn't have great matchups. It has inherent power, though. Kyurem VMAX is a house. I think it's really, really strong. So I don't think Kyurem VMAX is a bad choice or a good choice. It's a choice. It's in there. It's in the middle, Blissey Miltank, I'm going to put down here in tier 2. I'm not 100% sure of if it gets better or worse since the last set, and I'm going to be honest with you guys on that. I don't know if it gets better or worse since the last set. We're going to have to find that one out. Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, surely there are enough better decks to play now that we don't need to be playing this, right? It's just so vanilla, it's so plain. I don't like it. If you want an easy to play deck, I'd play Kyurem instead. Some of these decks, I'm not even sure where to put them. Giratina Arceus, it's like fine. I think Kyurem Palkia outclasses it in what it does. This is like a beat stick deck that's not very, very hard to play, but it also lacks the skill expression possible, where I feel Kyurem Palkia has skill expression in both your deck list that you create for the event, and it has skill expression in the games played, whereas Arceus Tina just is super plain to me, like almost as plain as Hisuian Zoroark. Like Hisuian Zoroark is plain white bread, and Arctina is like white bread with mayo. It's better, but not by much. We're putting Eternatus down here. No, thank you. Arceus Pika has some merit. Lugia is weak to lightning. Regigigas is good, and Flying Pika is good against that. Palkia is weak to lightning. Arceus Pika is solid. Like I said, these tier 2 decks, they're solid. Let's see. Arceus Duraludon. It looks like it should be good on paper, because Lugia uses all special energy and Regigigas uses all special energy, but like Regigigas plays Path. Lugia could play Path, but they'll also play Amazing Rare Eviltal that goes through the effects. So Arceus Duraludon, probably a tier 2 deck. Rotom V-Star, I know it got top 8 in Japan when they had Rotom V-Star and we didn't yet. And I believe that was before, that was before Lugia V-Star was released. That was before they got those cards. They got Rotom V-Star like a month and a half earlier in like one of the half sets. Rotom V-Star, I'll say, has potential, so I'll put it in tier 3. It seems like a functioning deck with potential. Lightning type weakness is a very good weakness to hit right now. So I'll put it in tier 3 and see what's up, but I don't have any, what should I say? I don't have any passionate opinions on Rotom V-Star. Arceus Inteleon, my baby. We're going to put it in tier 3, although, to be honest, Arceus Inteleon is probably the deck I've thought about the second most for this format, with Lugia being the first most thought about deck for me. I have thought about this and Arc B a lot. We're going to put Arc B up in tier 2, though, because B is good, because Lugia is good, and because Mew is good, and because it helps against Reggie. You can just pop them so you trade evenly with them. But then what do you do against the water decks? Not a lot. That's its issue. Dialga V-Star, tier 3, Mewtwo V Union Control. Control, Control. I'm gonna put it in tier 3, but like I haven't put thought into control yet. Like we're about to have a meta game where everybody's focused on Lugia, and that's the time when rogue stuff can slip through the cracks. When it's like, okay, this deck is dominant, and if you can find a control deck and a way to build control that's going to beat Lugia and beat like the 3 most popular counters to Lugia, and maybe toss in like one vanilla meta deck like Mew. If you can take care of all those, then control can do well. Personally, I'm not the person that comes up with the control lists and the strategies, so we'll leave that to Sander to see how that goes. Urshifu, tier 3, it's not awful, and Seviper, I can tell you 30 other decks that I want to play before I use the Seviper. Nothing against Seviper, it's just incredibly underwhelming. So that's my preliminary tier list for Silver Tempest. Thanks to Zapdos TCG for making this tier list. Shout out there. And let's see how wrong I was in a couple of months. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.